If you drive through Route County in northern Colorado, you'll notice the ranch fences along the road look completely different than they did a decade ago. They used to be just simple barbed wire. But now, most have been reinforced to over 2 meters high. Some even have electric wiring, with infrared security cameras hanging every few hundred meters in the back of the rancher's pickups. Alongside the hay and fencing tools, you'll now find high-powered flashlights, sonic wolf deterrents, and sometimes even shotguns. The cause of all this change: just over 30 gray wolves that have returned to this land. To deal with these apex predators, local ranchers have burned through hundreds of thousands of dollars upgrading their defenses. Yet, they still can't stop the wolf packs from repeatedly breaking into the ranches and killing their livestock. Some have lost their entire life savings, while others have been forced to sell off ranches that had been in their families for 3 generations. Until someone, out of pure desperation, decided to try something crazy and brought in a few Chinese donkeys, and the entire game completely changed. In 1926, the last pack of gray wolves in Yellowstone National Park was hunted to extinction. Over the next 70 years, without an apex predator, a chain reaction of ecological problems slowly emerged in the park. Elk populations exploded, stripping the riverbanks bare of willows and aspens. Beavers, which rely on those trees to build dams, lost their habitats. Fewer riverbanks led to soil erosion, and even the paths of the rivers themselves began to change. This is what ecologists call a trophic cascade. When a top predator disappears, the entire food chain collapses layer by layer. In 1995, the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service released 14 gray wolves captured in Canada into Yellowstone. In the decades that followed, the ecosystem slowly recovered. Elk numbers returned to a healthy balance. Riverbanks flourished with vegetation again. Beavers came back, and even bird species multiplied. This success story became the poster child for environmental groups pushing for the return of gray wolves. It was against this backdrop that Colorado's Proposition 114 was born. During the 2020 election, the ballot measure required the state government to reintroduce gray wolves into the western mountains to establish a sustainable population. In the end, it barely passed with a 50.9% approval rate. A razor-thin margin of less than 2 percentage points. The voting results were incredibly telling. The yes votes mostly came from cities like Denver and Boulder, where voters held on to the beautiful vision of restoring nature. The no votes were almost entirely concentrated in the western agricultural counties. The ranchers knew all too well what the return of the wolves actually meant. At the time, one rancher openly called it out, saying that city people were using the losses of rural folks to buy their own moral satisfaction. 5 years later, looking back, those fears are turning into reality. Step by step, in December 2023, Colorado released its first batch of 10 gray wolves. In January 2025, another 15 were brought in from Canada. By May 2026, official stats showed the population had reached at least 18 adults and 14 pups born last spring. 30-odd wolves might not sound like much, but for ranches scattered across the vast mountains, the impact is snowballing. Gray wolves are fiercely territorial, with a single pack's range covering hundreds of square kilometers. As the population spreads, more and more ranches are being drawn into the wolves' hunting grounds. To a wolf, hunting ranch cattle and sheep is just basic economics. Wild elk are fast and alert. Chasing them for miles doesn't guarantee a meal. But beef cattle and sheep inside a fence, they're plump and can't run away. A single adult cow can feed a small pack for days. This cost-benefit calculation, hardwired into their DNA, directly shifts the price of ecological restoration onto the most vulnerable small ranchers. Throughout 2025, there were 32 officially confirmed wolf attacks on livestock, spanning 8 western counties. Pitkin County took the hardest hit, with 10 separate attacks in a single year, leaving 11 cows and calves dead. Behind these numbers are cold, hard losses. Under Proposition 114, The state government is supposed to compensate ranchers for livestock lost to wolves at market value up to $15,000 per animal. It even accounts for indirect losses like livestock losing weight or having lower conception rates due to stress. The system sounds perfect on paper, but in reality, it is a completely different story. In 2025, CPW estimated compensation would hit about $1 million. But how much had the state government initially budgeted annually for this fund? Just $350,000. The actual payout soared to nearly 3 times the budget, relying entirely on emergency funding to fill the gap. Over 2 years, the total compensation has reached $1.722 million. Not having enough money is the least of it. What frustrates ranchers most is a compensation process that is both painfully slow and unpredictable. While minor claims total just $47,000, actual heavy losses require on-site inspections, evidence submissions, and committee votes. Whether it gets approved and for how much is anyone's guess. One rancher in Routt County lost 3 calves in back to back attacks in October and November 2025, submitting a $7,500 claim. He said in an interview, "City folks think this isn't what they were promised, but those of us who've run ranches our whole lives saw this coming from miles away." On top of that, many hidden losses simply can't be quantified, like lower meat quality and reduced breeding rates from chronic stress. So they end up getting zero compensation. What is even more disheartening is that the wolf population keeps growing. Models predict that over the next 5 to 10 years, Colorado's gray wolf population could top 200, and conflicts will only get worse. Meanwhile, the pipeline for importing wolves from Canada has been halted by federal authorities, and 5 neighboring states have flatly refused to supply breeding wolves. The current population is expanding naturally, yet there is no way to manage it manually. For the ranchers, the pressure is only going to mount. The Horton family has run their ranch on the Colorado Plains for 3 generations. With over 2,000 acres, 500 beef cattle, and more than 300 sheep, this place is the family's entire livelihood. Horton grew up on the ranch and has survived blizzards, droughts, and foot and mouth disease. But the wolf infestation in the spring of 2025 was the most exhausting ordeal of his life. The first incident happened on a crisp morning in March. Hearing a commotion in the sheep pen, he rushed over to find 3 sheep covered in wounds, huddled in the corner and shivering. At the time, wolves didn't even cross his mind. The ones released by the state were supposed to be dozens of miles away. He had no idea that the wolf packs were spreading much faster than any computer model had predicted. Late one night in May, he was jolted awake by the gut-wrenching screams of his livestock. Hurrying outside and scanning with his flashlight, he saw several gray shadows lingering by the fence, teeth bared, eyes reflecting a cold glaze. Wolves. A chill went straight through him. All he could do was yell at the top of his lungs and bang on the fence with a wooden stick. Only after a long showdown did the pack slowly amble away. Checking the perimeter the next day, he found a massive tear in the fence. 7 sheep were severely injured, and several beef cattle were hurt from crashing around in panic, stunts that would stunt their growth for a long time. What truly pushed him to the brink was the incident in June. He was doing his bookkeeping that afternoon when the ranch suddenly erupted into absolute chaos. Running out, he saw over a dozen gray wolves roaming the pastures as cattle and sheep scattered in terror. 12 market-ready beef cattle collapsed from sheer stress, foaming at the mouth. These cows were just a month away from being sold, representing over half a year of his profits. Instead, their meat quality was ruined. They fetched almost nothing, and he took a direct hit of over $80,000. Horton recalled that standing there in the dust, it felt like his whole world was crashing down. He tried everything. First, he spent $50,000 raising and reinforcing the fences, adding a perimeter of bells. But the wolves weren't the least bit rattled. Then, biting the bullet, he spent another 150,000 on high-voltage electric wiring and infrared cameras, staying up all night with his workers to guard the place. At first, it worked. A wolf got zapped once and fled, and they didn't return for a whole month. Horton breathed a sigh of relief, thinking the money was well spent, but he underestimated the intelligence of the gray wolf. Before long, the pack figured out the pattern. The electric grid's insulation dropped on rainy days, so they started picking rainy midnight hours to strike. Surveillance footage captured 6 wolves working in perfect coordination. Some rammed the posts while others gnawed at the wire netting, toppling a section of the fence and slipping through in just minutes. By the time Horton and his men rushed over, the wolves had already mauled 3 sheep and vanished into the woods. During that period, he slept 3 hours a day at most. His eyes were bloodshot, his hair fell out in clumps, and he lost over 10 pounds. He admitted he seriously contemplated selling the ranch and walking away from the only place he'd ever called home. Just when he was about to break, a local wildlife officer gave him a piece of advice that sounded completely absurd. "Why don't you try raising a few Chinese donkeys? They might just keep the wolves away." Horton's first reaction was that it had to be a joke. How could a slow creature like a donkey fend off a gray wolf? He shot the idea down immediately. But the officer was dead serious, explaining there were already success stories in other states. Large Chinese donkeys are highly alert, fiercely territorial, and can be even more intimidating than livestock guardian dogs. With absolutely no options left, Horton decided to grasp at straws. He did some research and found that people indeed used guard donkeys to deter coyotes. As luck would have it, agricultural trade between the U.S. and China was running smoothly in 2025. He contacted a livestock breeding enterprise in Shanxi and spent $25,000 to import 6 Guanzhong donkeys, 3 jacks and 3 jennies. He figured even if they failed against wolves, he could still sell them for meat and not lose too much money. He never could have guessed that this desperate gamble would be the very thing to pull him entirely out of the mud. In mid-July 2025, the 6 Guanzhong donkeys arrived at the ranch. Each stood over 1.3 meters tall at the shoulder, with broad chests, sturdy legs, and sleek, dark gray coats. They were a bit shy at first, but within a few days they adjusted and began roaming the pastures to graze. The magic happened much faster than anyone expected. Just 1 week in, and the infrared cameras showed no trace of lingering wolves. The once panicked cattle and sheep calmed down, and their appetite and activity levels noticeably bounced back. Horton couldn't quite believe the donkeys deserved all the credit, so he ran a control test. He temporarily moved the 6 donkeys to a neighboring paddock, separated by a wire fence. Sure enough, just 2 days later, surveillance caught 3 gray wolves lingering outside the main pasture fence. Testing the boundaries over and over, he rushed the donkeys back into the main pasture, and before long, the wolves turned around and left. In the months that followed, they never showed up again. Horton was completely won over. Speaking in an interview later, his voice cracked with emotion. "I never would have thought these mild, mannered Chinese donkeys could become the guardians of my ranch. With them around, I can finally get a good night's sleep." Word spread fast among the neighboring ranches. At first, everyone thought it was a joke, but they slowly came around after seeing that Horton's ranch hadn't suffered a single wolf attack since. A few ranchers even drove over just to see it for themselves. Watching the donkeys leisurely patrol and let out deep, raspy braying at any unusual sound, they finally realized the rumors were true. In fact, using donkeys to deter wolves is nothing new in the U.S. Back in the 1980s, Texas ranchers noticed that sheep herds mixed with donkeys were rarely attacked by wolves or coyotes. At the time, Texas raised more sheep than any other state and faced the worst predator issues. Ranchers tried countless methods before finding that donkeys worked best. Olson, a rancher in Minnesota, started raising donkeys to protect against wolves in 1999 and hasn't lost a single head of livestock in over 20 years. Today, Colorado's official wildlife protection guidelines list donkeys, alongside livestock guardian dogs and alpacas, as the 3 recommended guardian animals. Why can a seemingly gentle donkey strike absolute terror into a ferocious gray wolf? It all comes down to physical and behavioral traits hardwired into their DNA, which happen to target the exact weaknesses in a wolf pack's hunting style. First, their sensory abilities are off the charts. A donkey's ears are like radar dishes, large and highly flexible, with each ear able to rotate 180 degrees independently to provide full 360-degree coverage. Their hearing spectrum is wider than a human's, and they're particularly good at picking up low frequencies. Since wolf packs use low-frequency sounds to communicate over long distances, a donkey can hear a wolf snapping a twig 3 kilometers away. Their vision is just as impressive. With eyes set on the sides of their head, they can see in front, behind, and to both sides without even turning around. Second, they hold a massive advantage in size and strength. A Guanzhong donkey stands over 1.3 meters tall at the shoulder and weighs between 250 and 290 kilograms, well over 500 pounds. A North American gray wolf, by comparison, only weighs around 40 to 50 kilograms and stands 60 to 70 centimeters tall. They're in completely different weight classes. Plus, a donkey's hind legs pack incredible explosive power. A single kick can shatter a wolf's ribs. Third, their behavioral patterns completely defy expectations. Gray wolves are pursuit predators. The more a prey runs, the harder they chase. When cows and sheep encounter wolves, they scatter in panic, playing right into the wolves' hands. But donkeys are intensely territorial. When an intruder breaks in, they don't run. They charge right at them, braying aggressively and even launching an attack. This completely unpredictable reaction catches the wolves totally off guard. Furthermore, donkeys are pack animals. When danger strikes, they automatically form a defensive circle, shielding their young and the livestock in the center. Wolves are used to picking off scattered targets. Faced with an organized formation like this, they simply find no opening to strike. Over time, the wolves develop a conditioned reflex. Any place with a donkey means zero prey and a high chance of getting hurt, so they simply steer clear. This is the fundamental reason why research shows a 78% drop in gray wolf sightings wherever donkeys are present. You might be wondering, America has donkeys too, so why are Chinese donkeys the ones that can fight? The Guanzhong donkeys imported by Horton, along with Dezhou donkeys, are no ordinary working animals. They are premium. Large breeds developed over decades by Chinese researchers. China is home to over 30 different donkey breeds, with premium varieties making up more than 60%. Guanzhong and Dezhou donkeys are robust and highly alert. The Dezhou donkey, in fact, is crowned China's #1 donkey, with jacks reaching up to 1.55 meters at the shoulder. They don't just deter wolves, they hold high economic value. Behind this success is decades of breeding perseverance. At the Institute of Animal Breeding of the Chinese Academy of Agricultural Sciences in Shanxi, a team has dedicated over 30 years to the niche field of donkey breeding. Back in the 1990s, domestic donkey breeds were messy, poor in quality, small in size, and slow to grow. The team traveled across the nation, gathering hundreds of germplasm resources, meticulously recording every donkey's body size, growth rate, and disease resistance. Conditions were harsh back then. They would head into the stables at 5 in the morning and sort through data until midnight. Developing a single breed takes generations. A single generation of donkeys takes years to raise, and stability is only achieved after screening through 4 or 5 generations. They faced all sorts of hurdles, from low crossbreeding survival rates to trait segregation, adjusting pairs bit by bit to select only the best of the best. When the first Guanzhong donkey fully meeting their standards was born, standing over 1.3 meters tall, growing 30% faster than average, and highly disease-resistant, the entire team wept with joy. In truth, China's livestock breeding industry has a history of overcoming major bottlenecks. In 2003, 80% of China's laying hen breeding sources relied heavily on imports. Foreign companies hiked prices or cut supplies whenever they pleased. It took over 20 years of independent breeding to develop domestic varieties, which now claim 60% of the market, successfully breaking the monopoly. The story is the same for donkeys. A team in Shandong built a conservation system for Dezhou donkey germplasm and mapped the world's first whole genome sequence for donkeys, multiplying breeding efficiency several times over. By 2025, China exported over 10,000 breeding donkeys to more than 20 countries, including the US and Australia, with exports to the US growing 15% annually. These donkeys rely on nothing less than pure hard power in breeding technology, and the surrounding supply chain has caught fire too. In 2025, a Texan businessman named Harmon established the U.S.-China Donkey Cooperative. By importing and breeding them, he sold over 30 guard donkeys in a year, generating $6 million in revenue. Today in the U.S., there is specialized Chinese donkey feed, dedicated transport routes, domestication training, and even short-term rental services. A mini industry is taking shape. Globally, conflicts between humans and wildlife cause billions of dollars in economic losses every year. Many regions resort to hunting predators, which destroys ecosystems, or deploying high-tech gear that small-scale farmers simply can't afford. The biological defense approach of the Chinese donkey is low cost and harmless to wildlife. It perfectly balances ecology with livelihoods, offering a sustainable win-win solution. These Chinese donkeys, leisurely patrolling the Colorado plains, act like silent business cards, telling a simple yet profoundly convincing Chinese story. Voters in the cities cast their ballots to restore nature. Ranchers in the countryside paid the price with their lost livestock. The state government approved a budget of $350,000, only to fork out $1 million in compensation. The wolf pack grew from 10 to 32. And they keep on spreading. Yet the thing that ultimately solved the problem wasn't high voltage grids, infrared surveillance, or sonic deterrents. It was a bunch of donkeys shipped all the way from Shanxi, China. Sometimes the hardest technology isn't the flashiest. The most effective solutions might not look cool at all, but they work.